City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Hello, good afternoon out there, and welcome to another edition of your number one talk show, City Talks with Reuben Abati, on your number one lifestyle station, City 1051 FM. On this show, we talk about stories of political and human interest that affect us all as citizens and also as members of a global human community. Today, we'll be discussing the politics of national security, challenges and prospects. And to guide us through that topic, we have a very special guest, and it is with great pleasure that we have with us today Chief Femi Kayode, former Minister of Aviation. Chief David Oluwafemi Adewumi Abdulateef Fani Kayode is a politician, a lawyer, a poet, and an essayist. He hails from Osun State. He was born on the 16th of October 1960 to Chief Victor Babaremilekun Adetokunbo Fani Kayode, a leading Nigerian aristocrat, nationalist, statesman, and lawyer, who was a deputy premier of the Western region and who played a major role in Nigeria's history and politics. His mom was Chief Mrs. Adia Aduni Fani Kayode. Femi Fani Kayode started his education at the age of 8 at Brighton College, Brighton, in the United Kingdom, after which he went to Homewood House School in Tunbridge Wells, Kent, southeast England. He entered Harrow School in Harrow-on-the-Hill, United Kingdom, and later studied at Kelly College in Tavistock, United Kingdom, where he completed the rest of his public school education. In 1980, he went to the University of London, School of Oriental and African Studies, where he graduated with an LLB law degree in 1983. He later went to Cambridge University, Pembroke College, where his grandfather, father, and older brother had all previously read law. After finishing from Cambridge, Femi Fani Kayode went to the Nigerian Law School and in 1985 was called to the Nigerian Bar. In 1993, under the tutelage of Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams of Ghana, Femi Fani Kayode became a deacon, a Pentecostal Christian. He decided to go back to the school to study theology at the Christian Action Faith Bible Seminary in Accra, Ghana, and he gained a diploma in theology in 1995. He was a member of the Nigerian National Congress, NNC, in 1989. He became the national youth leader of the Nigerian National Congress the same year. In 1980, he was appointed Chief Press Secretary to Chief Tom Ikime, the first national chairman of the National Republican Convention. And in 1991, he became special assistant to Alhaji Umaru Shinkafi, former head of the Nigerian Security Organization, NSO. In 1996, disturbed by the actions of General Sani Abacha's military junta, Femi Fani Kayode left Nigeria and joined the National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, abroad, where together with the likes of the Oxford University-trained lawyer, Chief Tunde Edu, and others, he played a very active role in the fight against military autocracy. He returned to Nigeria in 2001 and met President Olusegun Obasanjo. In 2003, he was appointed by the president as a member of his presidential campaign team for the 2003 presidential election. After President Obasanjo won that election, Femi Fani Kayode was appointed as the first ever special assistant on public affairs to the president of Nigeria. In 2006, he was appointed the Honorable Minister of Culture and Tourism. That same year, after a minor cabinet reshuffle, he was redeployed to the Aviation Ministry as the Minister of Aviation. Since the end of the tenure of President Olusegun Obasanjo's administration in 2007, Femi Fani Kayode has also been actively involved in politics. At a point, he was the campaign manager for President Goodluck Jonathan in the 2015 presidential elections. And also recently, he was named by the Vanguard newspaper as one of the leading opposition figures in Nigerian politics. Chief Femi Fani Kayode. If you want to be part of this conversation, you can call us on 0700 1051 1051. You can leave comments on WhatsApp 090 991 64403 and on our social media accounts at City 1051 on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. Chief Femi Fani Kayode, thank you very much for joining us. You're welcome to City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Thank you very much, Reuben. Thank you for having me.
Well, very quickly, this week, something very significant happened. We all woke up to the news that President Muhammadu Buhari had already changed his service chiefs. Some people have interpreted that as the president listening to public opinion. Some people say, well, it's coming rather late. Some people say it's better late than never. But you are on record as having commended President Buhari for finding the courage to change his service chiefs. And you hope that the change of service chiefs will make a difference. Why the emphasis on courage? And what kind of difference do you expect to see?
Well, clearly, the reason I use the word courage. Well, first, let me thank you for having me on your program, Reuben. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here. And I thank the listeners for listening to this discussion. The reason I use the word courage was because it's very clear to me, based on what has been happening over the last few years, that President Muhammadu Buhari perhaps was more interested in his own personal security and having his loyalists around him, manning the army, manning the navy, manning the air force, and all the other security agencies, despite the fact they were not doing a good job at all. In fact, they did a terrible job, but he was comfortable with that, knowing that they were totally and completely loyal to him. And therefore, he kept them in power for many, many years. He ought to have got rid of them long ago. But I think his fears concerning what may happen if he removed them or changed them or redeployed them is really what motivated the fact that he kept them there. Some say it was loyalty. No, it's not loyalty. Their tenure was long over. They ought to have gone a long time ago. And the consequence of that was that, all over the country, thousands of people lost their lives because these people were incompetent. They did not have the political will to do the right thing. Many of them turned the guns of the military against our own people, killing their own citizens, and so on and so forth. So I think President finally realized that it was long overdue, that he had no choice but to make the right decision and take what he would consider to be a risk, but what, as far as the Nigerian people are concerned, something he had no choice but to do. That is to change these service chiefs in order to get a better result, to ensure that our people are well protected and that we have a chance at establishing peace and fighting crime and fighting terrorism. So I commend him for finding that courage, and I think he did the right thing.
Well, in the course of the handing over ceremonies that we have seen, the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Abayomi Olonishakin, is on record as having said that under his watch, operational capacity was improved, logistics was improved, welfare was improved, and that when he took over as Chief of Defense Staff in 2015, that 20 local governments out of 26 in Borno State were under the control of the terrorists, of Boko Haram specifically. But that now that he is leaving, he's been able to change all of that. And he believes that he has been able to make a lot of difference. Now, when the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, was also handing over to his successor, Major General Lucky Rabo, he also said that as Chief of Army Staff, he's been able to do a lot to provide transformational leadership and also record landmark achievements and also improve professionalism in the Nigerian military. This is the account of the now outgone service chiefs. Well, do you agree that they were so fantastic in the 5 years that they were in charge?
If anybody is asked to mark his own exam papers, he will give himself 100% at every point, especially when you're setting the questions yourself. For the Chief of Defense Staff to say what he said, that 20 local government areas were under the control of Boko Haram when he came in 2015, that is a complete and utter lie. One of the worst things any government can do, or any public servant can do, is to begin to believe his own propaganda. It is a lie. You and I know, and most Nigerians know, and those that don't know should go and do the research, that at the time that President Goodluck Jonathan left office in 2015, not one local government area in Borno State or anywhere else in the Northeast, or indeed in the country, was under the control of Boko Haram. The record speaks for itself. What happened was that at that point in time, by the time we did the elections, that is the time the election actually took place, after the 6-month postponement, every single part of Nigeria, apart from Sambisa Forest, had been freed of Boko Haram. That is a historical fact. Now, I know that Lai Mohammed and all the other propagandists of the APC, even during the time of the election, were saying otherwise. But we all know the truth. And that is why, during the election itself, so many votes were given, or supposedly given, to President Muhammadu Buhari in the Northeast. How could you have had so many votes if 20 local government areas were under the control of Boko Haram? Boko Haram did not believe in the elections. They did not vote. So that is a lie that he has just told. And this is symptomatic of the way these people behave. Boko Haram has inflicted more damage in the Northeast than ever before over the last 5 years. And this man will be giving himself 100%. I don't know him. I have nothing against him. I've never met him before. But what I'll tell you is this. The posterity will be very, very harsh to him. Posterity will also be harsh to Burutai. He says he left a legacy. What was his legacy? Apart from the fact that he's made himself a candidate for the ICC, International Criminal Court, in The Hague. Why do I say so? Under his watch, Shia Muslims were butchered, were killed. People's children, people's wives, people's husbands, people's grandchildren, and people's grandparents were killed under his watch. Over 1,000 of them in Kaduna. IPOB youths were slaughtered under his watch. He went to do Python dance in the East. Many innocent people were slaughtered. Just the other day in Obibo, many people were slaughtered by his soldiers. Again, just a few days ago, in Orlu, the same thing happened. Innocent civilians were butchered. All over the country, the military were turning their guns. And I can never forget, none of us should forget what happened in Lekki. Innocent civilians were killed by these people's troops. He was the commander. The buck stops with him. Apart from Buhari, the buck stops with him. He was the chief of army staff when all these atrocities took place. Innocent blood was flowing in our streets. People were slaughtered. Unarmed people were slaughtered. Women and children were slaughtered by his soldiers. And he says it's a legacy. It's not a legacy. And you see, we must get to the point that we stop papering all this stuff over as if it doesn't matter. It does matter. It counts against this administration. It counts against their tenure as Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, and all the other service chiefs over the last 5 years. And who paid the price? The innocent people that have been slaughtered. Now, quite apart from that, let's look at their record against terrorism in this country. That is under their watch. Under their watch, the Fulani herdsmen have become the 4th most deadly terrorist organization in the world, according to the International Terror Index, whilst Boko Haram remains the #1. Have they fought the Fulani herdsmen? No. His military, under him, refused to disarm the military. They refused to disarm the Fulani herdsmen, refused to fight them, refused to remove them from the forest of the southwest, refused to fight them in the belt, refused to fight them in the northeast, in the north and in the northwest. In the northwest, 300 to 400 people were being slaughtered every day, particularly in Zamfara state. Zamfara alone, every day, whilst the previous governor that was there before was in power. That was under the watch of these military chiefs. All these things were happening. So what do you have to say? Under your watch, as head of military, as chief of defense staff, all these military agents, under their watch, what happened? Fulani herdsmen became an institution and a great force, became a powerful terrorist organization. Nobody could arrest them. Nobody could disarm them. Nobody could even fight them. And then, of course, Boko Haram kidnapped more people than ever before, slaughtered more people than ever before, encroached on the borders of Abuja, have gone into Borno, have gone into Yobe, have gone into Adamawa, killing so many people. Apart from that, under their watch, Islamic ISIS West Africa has encroached into Nigeria, killing our people, slaughtering our people. That is their record. That is their legacy. Nothing to be proud of. And like I said earlier, Buratai particularly may well be a candidate for the ICC. Now, I have nothing against this man. I have not met him. I have nothing against him. I speak only about his record in public office. And if he wants to be honest with himself, what he should do is get on his knees and pray to God and ask for forgiveness for the atrocities that were committed by his soldiers under his watch against the Nigerian people. He should be ashamed of his record. He should not boast of it.
Be many versions in terms of the assessment of the record of the team that was led.
But Reuben, may I just interrupt you there? You see, this is the problem with us as Nigerians. You say many versions. Let us, facts are facts, and facts are sacred. As you know, you are one of the greatest writers, one of the most respected public commentators and writers in this country. The problem we have in Nigeria is that people are always stating opinions, and they are always trying to distort facts. We know the facts. We know that Shia Muslims are slaughtered. We know IPOB youths are slaughtered. We know the Fulani herdsmen are all powerful. We know that Boko Haram is stronger than ever before. We know that at the end of 2015, no local government area was under the control of Boko Haram, apart from in Sambisa Forest. But they keep twisting the narrative and trying to misrepresent the facts in order to justify that. There is no army in the world, no commander in the world that will be proud of turning his guns on his own people for whatever reason. And there has to be accountability for that. The Lekki Gate killing alone, there has to be accountability for it. Accountability from the military, accountability from the president, accountability from the governor of Lagos State, accountability from every single person that was involved. There must be accountability. And that blood, that innocent blood that was shed, speaks against us all, against the military, against our nation, against our president, against our people. And that is why we have to do something about it.
Well, but the point I was trying to make is that there are persons who have also commended the team that was led by Lieutenant General Tuko Buratai, including the Commander-in-Chief himself, who appointed those service chiefs. And there are persons who have sent across words of congratulations. However, my next question is as follows. The new team, led by Major General Lucky Rabo, when that team met with the president, Major General Lucky Rabo made the point that his team will add value. And these are insiders who have been part of the team, which was a point that Oloni Shakin, former CDS, also made, that these are persons who have been well tested. And we have seen what looks like an indication that indeed maybe they will be able to add value. Because I think it was on Thursday, overnight, Friday, that we were told that as a result of some aerial operation, some Chibok girls have been released. They've made contact with their families. Is that an indication indeed that this new team will be able to add value and that they will be able to hit the ground running? Before you respond, Chief Femi Kayode, let's take a quick commercial break. When we return, you can then respond. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is a public service announcement to our dear customers that don't have NIN or are yet to link their NIN to their MTN lines. As mandated by the NCC, MTN will be linking your National Identification Number NIN to the same registration information you have already provided to make the process easy for you. Here are 2 simple ways to get it done. Log on to my MTN app or dial *785*NIN#. If you don't have a NIN, visit www.nimc.gov.ng to find an enrollment center near you. If you have registered but can't remember your NIN, dial *346# with the phone number you registered at enrollment. Please remember, apart from your primary line, you must also link your NIN to all your MTN lines and data SIMs such as MiFi, HiNetflix, and any other line you use on the MTN network. This announcement is very important. To avoid disconnection, all lines must be linked before 9th February 2021.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, you are listening to City Talks with Reuben Abati on City 105.1 FM, and our guest is Chief Femi Kayode, politician, writer, poet, essayist, and former Minister of Aviation of Nigeria. Chief Femi Kayode had asked you a question making the point that there are many versions in terms of the assessment of the now outgone service chiefs of Nigeria, and that this new team will seem to have hit the ground running. But what are your expectations?
Well, first of all, let me just go back to the first part of the question you asked. When President Buhari commended the team that it's on its way out and said they've done a good job, I don't expect President Buhari to say anything different to that. After all, he's the one that sent them out to commit the atrocities that they committed. He ultimately holds, the buck stops with him. Ultimately, it's his responsibility what happened under the watch of these people. And the fact that he can commend them for doing what they did tells you that perhaps there really has not been a change in his own mindset about how soldiers are meant to behave. Soldiers are meant to be men of honor. Officers are meant to be men of honor that protect the weak, protect the innocent, and stand against those that are the enemies of the nation, outside and within. Under Burutai, under President Buhari, that has not happened over the last 5 years. And it appears to me, if he can commend some of the things that Burutai has done and said they did a good job, that tells you that he has endorsed all those things. And that tells you that there is no remorse. And it gives us a little hope about what may happen in the future. However, I'm prepared to say this, that it is a new beginning. A new beginning with the same commander-in-chief. Don't expect too many things to be different. I'm happy about what has happened with these Chibok girls. I'm happy about the fact that I was told the other day that some of the people that committed the killings in Orlu a few days back have been arrested. Some of the policemen have been arrested. I don't know how true that is, but if that's the case, I'm happy to hear that. But let us wait to see what will happen. I don't expect much change, but let's wait to see what happens. If it is that under the new leadership, the military do not kill civilians, the military are far more gentle with human beings, are far more sensitive, and will not follow illegal orders to turn their guns on civilians, then I'll be the first to commend them, because that's what we want. We want a military that will fight the terrorists in our midst, that will fight ISWA, that will fight the Fulani herdsmen, that will fight the Boko Haram, and that will fight everybody that seeks to destabilize our country and is killing innocent, defenseless Nigerians. That's what we want, that's what we pray for, and that's what we commend. And I sincerely hope and pray that this team will do that. And if they do, they would have my support. They would have my support.
Well, I see Professor Kemi Rotimi from Obafemi Awolowo University saying that there cannot be only one verdict as regards the tenure of the former service chiefs, that there will be indeed many versions to the story. And I guess it's referring to, the era of a single story made famous by Chimamanda Adichie. But let me ask you, sometime this week you posted on social media that you hosted members of the Southern Kaduna People's Union, SOKAPU. Yes. Would you like to share with us the highlights of that meeting and what the concerns of the people of Southern Kaduna are?
Well, first of all, let me just say that I've used this opportunity to commend the leadership of SOKAPU and the people of Southern Kaduna for being so resilient, for being so strong, and for standing up over the years, despite the most vicious level of unprecedented persecution that they have suffered in the hands of those that torment them, and also the sheer indifference of the federal government over the last 5 years about their plight. 2016 Christmas Eve alone, 800 indigenes of Southern Kaduna were butchered in their homes by Fulani herdsmen. Not one Fulani herdsman was arrested or apprehended as a consequence of that. And that has been the pattern since that time. Constant killings, constant attacks against this community by Fulani herdsmen who are operating without any restraint and are never brought to book and are hardly ever questioned, arrested, or apprehended. And so they've been under siege, and they have borne it very, very well. And they have a lot of issues concerning the leadership of the state and also the leadership of the country. And they have been treated, in my view, in my assessment, very, very unfairly. And they've suffered perhaps more than any other community in this country. I'm in touch with them. I'm very, very close to them. primarily because we share the same faith. Most of them are Christians, and I feel their pain. I feel the fact that they're suffering, and it's not just them. Across the Middle Belt, and I've lived in the Middle Belt since 2003, and I share the pain of the communities, particularly the Christian communities that have been suffering over those years. But the people of Southern Kaduna are under siege, and I'm a friend of theirs. I'm a believer in their cause, and I sincerely hope and pray that things change and things get better for them. They came to give me an assessment because Sokapu, is the representative body for all of them, of what's been going on in their community. And sadly, it doesn't appear as if much has changed. There's a lot of reactionary behavior on the part of all those that are in authority there. Their people are being persecuted. They're going through hell. But with prayer and with God, all things are possible. And I sincerely hope and pray that the state government treats them with a little bit more sensitivity, far more sensitivity and understanding. And they can come to some kind of peaceful understanding. And we can, at that point, the state can move forward. But most importantly, it's not even the state government. I think the federal government is the one that has really let them down. And I call on the federal government, I call on President Muhammadu Buhari to remember the sufferings of the people of Southern Kaduna, just as he ought to remember the sufferings of the people of other parts of the north, other parts of the country, not just in the forests of the southwest, but also, and I'm particular about this, the people of Zamfara State, who have also suffered immeasurably. Had it not been for the efforts of the new governor that's come in, it would have been even worse in Zamfara. He's done a good job. That's Matawali, Governor Matawali. But honestly speaking, what's going on in the north today in terms of security is mind-blowing and mind-boggling. And most of it you don't get to read or hear about in the press. And I feel for the people, both Christian and Muslim. But in the case of Sokapu or the Southern Kaduna, it's particularly bad. What we see there, what I see there, and what I've seen there, and I've been there on many occasions, is cases of ethnic cleansing, cases of people literally being targeted because of their faith and because of their tribe, people being displaced, communities being overrun, overturned, women and children being slaughtered by these terrorists, and the state has not done enough to protect them. And that really is a failing on all of us, not just on the state government, not just on the federal government, on the entire country. We ought to talk about their plight. We ought to talk about the suffering and the plight of many, many minorities in the north, just as we're talking about the plight of people all over the south that are being terrorized by the same terrorist group, the Fulani herdsmen.
It's good you mentioned Fulani herdsmen. While I understand your concerns on the basis of faith and issues of equity, justice, and security with regard to the people of Southern Kaduna, I'm a bit ambivalent about your support for a gentleman called Sunday Adeyemo, also known as Sunday Ugboho, who constituted himself into a one-man force against persons that are called Fulani herdsmen in the southwest. Well, we talk about Fulani herdsmen, but nobody talks about Igbo Yahoo boys or Igbo armed robbers. Nobody talks about Edo armed robbers or Edo prostitutes. It's only the herdsmen that we label Fulani herdsmen, well, part of the Nigerian problem. But you wrote an essay, Sunday Igboho and the threat of war. Even Facebook pulled down that article, but still, you insisted Sunday Igboho is a man of the moment. And for a man like you, he's an officer in the temple of justice. I find it odd that you will support a resort to self-help rather than supporting the institutions of state to address whatever crisis may have emerged in Ibarakwa local governments in Oyo State, or, as was the case, in Ondo State.
Okay, let me start by the Facebook aspect. Well, we all know that Facebook is very sensitive and completely the way they're behaving is quite unacceptable. After the post was up for I believe it was one day, we had over 1 million people had read that post, and luckily for me, it wasn't taken down on Twitter, it wasn't taken down anywhere else, and it's on my website and was widely published in virtually every major website blog in this country. So millions of people have read that essay, regardless of whatever it is that Facebook has done. But the point is this: first of all, where the state has failed to carry out what it's meant to do, that is to protect the people from terrorists, from kidnappers, from bandits, and where women and children are being slaughtered. And where, for example, in this particular case, a young man who had made a lot of money abroad came back after working for many years and invested his money in that area. And his area was attacked by these same people. And he went to them and said, look at what you have done. And they butchered him in cold blood. And where this happens on a daily basis, which was the case in that area, where the security agencies were not interested in helping, I don't blame the governor. He has little control over the security agencies. I blame the federal government once again. Nobody cared. And this has been going on for years. The people of Ibarapa had been slaughtered, kidnapped, and tortured by these same people. And everybody knew that it was coming from this particular group, this particular gentleman and his team and the people that work under him. And Igboho did not commit any crime by going there to tell him that, listen, produce these individuals that did this. There was no crime in that. And the gentleman acknowledged, according to Igboho, that yes, his boys did it, and that he had warned him, he had warned them. And even Igboho was almost attacked on that day. He disarmed the people that sought to attack. He went with a handful of people. They were surrounded, and he left in peace. And he told them that, look, either you give up these people or you leave the area within 7 days because I will be back. The reason he did that was to save lives, to ensure that nobody was hurt, including the Fulanis in the area, because he knew about the rage of the people of that area, and he gave them notice. Now, I am not a believer in quick notices for Fulani people, Yoruba people, or Igbo people, or any other people, because anybody has the right to reside in any part of this country, and I've always opposed that. However, I am a believer of giving quick notice to criminals, murderers, ritualists, savages, and terrorists who butcher people in cold blood for no reason at all other than pecuniary gain. I'm a believer in that, especially where the state has failed to protect the people. So I see him as a hero. He went back there and the people had left the area, and he was hailed as a hero by the local people for ridding the place of not Fulanis, because there are still Fulanis in that area, and I'm happy to say that, but of the group of criminals that have been terrorizing the local people and that have been killing people. And I think that is commendable, and it is courageous, and he risked his life and everything. If we had more people like that, not just in the Southwest, but all over the country, that were prepared to say, listen, enough is enough. The state is not doing its job, but we're not going to sit here until they kill every single one of us. Please, you terrorists, leave our area. If we had more people like that, this would be a much better country. He did not give notice to the Fulanis. I wouldn't support that they should leave. He gave notice to the terrorists. Now, you mentioned that Fulani herdsmen, why do we call them Fulani herdsmen? You said that Igbo, people may say Igbos are all 419, whatever it is. I can't remember how you cut it. And I take the point that why should we use the word Fulani herdsmen when we're talking about these people? Why don't we just call them herdsmen, or just call them criminals, or call them terrorists? The reason why it needs to be done is this: because they have never denied that label themselves. They themselves are very proud of the fact that Miyetti Allah is their umbrella organization. They call themselves Fulani herdsmen, and the overwhelming majority of them commit these crimes. Those that don't commit these crimes have a duty to the nation, have a duty to the rest of us, have a duty to the victims to now turn in and expose those that do. But that never happens. You never get them condemning the killing. You never get them criticizing it. You never get them giving up those that do the killing. They never do anything. They simply say, well, it's happened, it's happened. Now, we're talking about Igboho now. We're talking about the perpetrators of these crimes, this Sarakin Fulani and all the rest of them. We're talking about all this. We're talking about terms, labels like Fulani herdsmen. What about the victims? What about the victims? Nobody talks about the victims. I posted a picture of the hack body of the gentleman that was butchered by them, that sparked this whole thing up. Very few people are talking about the victims. It's only in Nigeria that this happens. And I'm saying that it's about time somebody spoke up for the voiceless, somebody spoke up for the defenseless, and somebody puts the government on notice that, listen, if you don't do your job, then the people themselves will rise up and do it. We don't want trouble. Nobody wants trouble, and nobody wants to disturb the peace. That's the last thing we want. And certainly we don't want any ethnic conflict. And like I said, nobody in their right mind would say all Fulani should leave. But if, for example, my brother, a Yoruba militia or a Yoruba pig farming militia was operating in the north, Yoruba pig farmers, and went there and slaughtered half the people in any particular community and did it for 5 years running, and the state and the federal government, which was under Yoruba control, did nothing about it, and just watched them, didn't disarm them, didn't send the military against, and they effectively constituted themselves into a terrorist group occupying all the forests of the Northwest. I can assure you that all the traditional rulers of the North, all the leaders of the North, all the people of the North would have got up to say, enough of this, these people must leave. Rightly so. One more point I'll make concerning Sunday. There is not one traditional ruler in Oyo State, in Ibarapa, or in the Southwest that has spoken against what he has done. Not one. They've said he should not take the law into his own hands, which he has not done. Nobody has been killed as far as I'm aware, and God forbid anybody should be killed, and neither should we incite or encourage that kind of violence. But what he has done is sensitize the public and the people and shown that Yoruba people have courage to stand up for themselves when we're pushed to the wall. We need more of that. We need more Igbohus, and that's why I stand by him.
Well, I mean, the subtext of it is that in Nigeria, we often play the ethnic card, we play the religious card, and that's a major problem in terms of the fault lines within the Nigerian Federation.
So Reuben,
I was going to draw your attention to something else.
Okay.
And I was going to say that it's good that you talked about traditional rulers. You recall that sometime this week, the Ooni of Ife, who is in a neighboring state, Osun State, met with the president. And one of the things he said after that meeting is that nobody should take the law into their hands. And he specifically said Sunday Igboho should allow the state to handle the herdsmen menace, either in Oyo State or in Ondo State or in Ogun State. And he even advised Igboho to act in moderation and not allow himself to be used or manipulated by politicians. Because there are persons who have been saying that, look, this herdsmen farmers conflict, foreign reserve grazing politics in the Southwest is actually something being engineered by politicians. And Makinde, the governor of Oyo State, he also is of the view that Sunday Igboho, whom you say is a hero, is overreaching himself. What do you say to these other versions of the story?
I completely subscribe to the view of the Ooni of Ife, which is that he shouldn't take the law into his own hands, which is that we shouldn't allow this thing to escalate, and which is that we must try to ensure peace at all costs. He also said, the Ooni also said that he commended Igboho, that he supported him, and that Igboho was a hero. Those were his words. Those are the words that Kabiyesi used. And I agree with that. We all share that view. Not one Yoruba man is against what this man did. What others are saying, including Makinde and so on and so forth, is that, okay, fine, you've made your point. You've gingered us up. You've made us sensitive to what our duties are. Now let us take over and do the right thing, which they appear to be doing. Had he not done that, nothing would have happened. So we ought to commend him for making these people understand, Makinde and all the rest of them. And I have immense respect for Seyi Makinde, good friend of mine, a wonderful man, and a very good governor. The fact that he can now rise up and do what he ought to have been doing all along, which he tried his best to do without support from the federal government, let's hope that support comes now and he can do the right thing. In fairness to the governors of the Southwest, had it not been there was a problem, they talk about politicians, politics, absolute rubbish. The reason why there's an issue is because our forests in the Southwest have been taken over by terrorists, whether of Fulani extraction or whatever. But they happen to be Fulani terrorists, Fulani herdsmen, killing and slaughtering our people, including the leader of Feni Ferre's own daughter and so many other. Rich people, poor people, big people, small people, they've been slaughtering them for the last 5 years. And across party lines, a decision was taken about a year or so ago in the Southwest, across party lines, APC and PDP, to set up Amotekun, that is a Southwest defense militia, in order to defend our people, to ensure that this sort of thing stops. Why did they do that? Because the federal government was not doing the right thing, and what we're not living up to its duties. So it was a creature of invention. It came as a consequence of necessity that Amotekun came into place. And that was a response to a very real problem. Nothing to do with politics. It's about life and death. It's about genocide. It's about mass murder. And it's about the fact that we cannot take this level of terrorism anymore. Now, even with Amotekun in place, you still have these people there. And people in the Southwest are still saying it's not enough. More needs to be done to protect us. You cannot criticize somebody when he's been a victim, or a people when they've been a victim of these atrocities. You cannot say, oh, don't cry, and we're not going to do anything about it. If you want this sort of thing to stop, if you don't want Igbohos to rise up, if you don't want people like FFK to speak well of Igboho doing what is, then you get off your high horse, stop being opinionated, and you do your job. Protect the people of the communities and of the Southwest. Then all this will stop. That's the remedy.
Well,
and once they do that, we will all support them.
In the course of this conversation, you have mentioned Amotekun, you have mentioned the ESN, the Eastern Security Network. Now, ad hoc solutions by state governments, by socio-cultural groups, regional groupings to address the problem of insecurity. But do you think that this is really the solution? Because my own view is that, look, this issue of insecurity is far more complex than ethnic profiling, religious profiling, labeling people, saying it's Fulani, it's the Igbo. No, let me finish. No, I was going to make the point quickly that do you think that, Amotekun and ESN have been of any effect? We saw Amotekun the other day even arresting students.
Listen, I have to say this. Let me go back to what I said earlier. We cannot deny the fact or run away from the fact that there is an ethnic element to this. We can't deny it, and there's a religious element to it. Nobody wants to say it. Nobody wants to address it. Listen, these people are Fulanis. These people are Muslims, and these people are committing the killing. Not all of them. Not all Fulani herdsmen are terrorists, but a sizable number of them are. Some terrorists are operating under that guise. That does not derogate from the fact that they are Fulanis and that they are Muslims. And they are killing both Muslims and Christians in Yoruba land and elsewhere. That is a fact. We can't deny that. So it's not a question of ethnic profiling. It's a question of telling the truth. Now, the same people are doing the same thing in the Southeast, the South-South, the Northeast, the Northwest, and in the Middle Belt. So you can't run away from that. Now, that's point number one. Point number two, the reason why these ethnic militias, Amotekun, ESN, are rising up is as a consequence of the failing and the failures of the Buhari government. If the Buhari government, for example, refuses to designate the fourth most deadly terrorist organization in the world, the Fulani militants, they call them Fulani militants. That's what the organization that has set this thing up. That's what they call them, the Fulani militants. Now, if the Nigerian government refuses for some reason, maybe because the president himself is a Fulani man and he's a Muslim, he refuses to designate them as a terrorist organization, then you begin to ask yourself questions. When the presidency will say, treat them with respect, then you begin to ask questions. When the presidency tells you that, for example, when they butchered a whole community and the victims now complain, those that are left of them in the middle, and the presidency says, listen, just give up your land, otherwise you'll have to give up your life. And that's their response. You begin to wonder. And when the governor of Ondo State passes a law and says, listen, we're tired of this. Every Fulani herdsman must leave our forests. And if you want to operate in our territory, in our state, you must register. And the presidency gets up to say that this is the wrong thing for them to do. They have no right to do that. You begin to see that there's something that has gone drastically wrong, and that this government is literally supporting these terrorists. And that is why there's this element of ethnicity and religion in the whole thing. They brought it in. Now, the solution for it is to do what a real president ought to do. Fight criminality. Use the apparatus of government to fight these Fulani terrorists, these Fulani herdsmen, and show the world that you are a Nigerian before you're a Fulani, you're a Nigerian before you're a Muslim. And I put it to you finally, again, if the position had been reversed, and if it was some kind of Christian militia, Yoruba militia, operating in the north in the same way, and this was being done under Christian president, all hell would have broken loose by now. And that's the point that Bishop Kuka was making. Nobody wants this country to be destabilized, but you must understand that everybody has its limits. Thousands and thousands of people have been killed, and that is unfortunate. The government must stop these killings. The government must defend the people, regardless of their tribe, and the government must disarm the Fulani herdsmen and designate them as terrorists and send the military after them. That's my view. That's the solution. Without that, we're simply talking. Nothing good can happen without that.
Well, in a matter of minutes, I would like to take questions, comments from some of our listeners. But if you can just respond in, if possible, less than a minute. What you think about the meeting that was summoned by the Nigeria Governors Forum with 6 governors of the southwest states in attendance, with the Miyetti Allah in attendance, with the governors of Yobe and Jigawa in attendance to find a way forward. Do you think that that meeting was useful and that it helped to solve the problem in any way?
Well, if for nothing else, I believe that it allowed people to understand, particularly the Miyetti Allah and the Northerners, that this was not targeting Fulanis at all. This was simply an attempt to preserve our forests and protect them from herdsmen that are slaughtering the people. And I'm glad that the governor of Ondo State stood his ground and said, listen, they all have to go. And then if they want to operate outside the forest, they need to be registered. I do, however, think there's a point that needs to be made here that, how come it is that when people are being slaughtered by terrorists in the forest, and you ask them to go, a government says, listen, we've had enough, you must leave our forests, and that those that want to operate must register. You now have to call the very people that are involved with those terrorists and sit down and explain to them. As far as I'm concerned, this was a major concession. 6 governors of the Southwest. This is an area, one of the most advanced areas in the whole country. Educated people, and 6 of our governors have to sit down with these people that have committed crimes and explain themselves to them. I think there's something fundamentally wrong with that. But however, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. They've made their point. They've expressed their views. They stood their ground, and I'm glad they did that. And they passed the law in Ondo State, and I commend Akeredolu for doing that.
Kayode, before we begin to take questions and comments from our listeners, let's take this commercial break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Welcome back to City Talks with Reuben Abati here at City 105.1 FM. And our guest is still Chief Femi Fani Kayode, who has been addressing the subject of the politics of security in Nigeria. If you want to be part of this conversation, you can call us on 0700-1051-1051. On WhatsApp, 09099164403. And on our social media accounts at City 1051 on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. So we'll take the next few minutes, maybe about 15 minutes, to engage Chief Femi Fani Kayode, who is the first caller on the line. I think we have a caller out there. Hello?
Hello. Good morning, doctor. Or good afternoon, doctor.
Yes, it's still, it's now good afternoon. Yes, please go ahead. Your name, and very quickly, be brief.
Okay, I'm Abiodun Adeniyi.
Okay, Dr. Adeniyi.
At the university. Thank you very much for your insights, Chief Fani Kayode. Delivered with your typically exemplary locution. Sir, I have somewhat followed your political career, even from your days, in Lagos when you then resided at Apapa.
I remember.
As a growing-up journalist working for the Guardian.
Remember.
Yes, sir. And I discovered that you're from then on I followed you, but I discovered that your political career is somewhat characterized with, some great risk, even to personal safety. And I want to ask with all sense of responsibility, sir, that what is the driving force? What is your driving force? What is your motivation? And how long do you want to continue with this, sir? That's first. And secondly, Chief, is there anything you think the present administration can do, so that you can probably become one of their fans? Is there any change you think can affect so that you can probably be part of them somewhat, And another short one, sir. Is there a way, we can situate the performances of individuals in public offices away from their individual abilities onto the limitations of institutions? And finally, Chief, I listen to
questions, Dr. Adeniyi.
I'll round up now, sir.
We have other people waiting.
Okay, so, okay, very short one, sir. Finally, Chief Iba Gani Adams, the Area Okaka for Yoruba land, I had him said that, you know, sometimes the Fulani herdsmen, their ranks are sometimes infiltrated, you know, by some Yorubas who give them information on who to kidnap for ransom and all of that. Do you not think this validates the position of Dr. Abati or the question he asks, you know, that sometimes, you know, ethnic labeling may be dangerous because the ranks of some of these criminals are being infiltrated by other tribesmen? Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my brother. I remember you very well. Those days in Apapa, and you're looking well. Good to see you again. Thanks. Let me start with the last question you put in terms of collusion and so on and so forth. Well, you know, there's no terrorist organization anywhere in the world, whether it's ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram, or any other that can operate without some level of collusion from the local population that they're terrorizing. They do so by giving the people their money, by whatever their motives are, but they infiltrate and then they strike. And of course, collaborators and traitors ought to be treated in the same way as those that commit these terrorist acts. But that does not derogate from the fact that the people that are members of these terrorist organizations are the ones that are the first line of terror against the local population, and killing, maiming, burning, kidnapping, and occupying somebody's land, and sometimes flying a flag over the land, as has happened in Plateau State on many occasions, whereby they take the land of the local people, change the name, fly a flag, Boko Haram flag or whatever in the community, and change the name of the community. In the case of Fulani herdsmen, you know where it's all coming from. Yes, they have collaborators, but they are Fulani herdsmen and they are Boko Haram terrorists. They are ISWA, and they have a philosophy which they're spreading and which they intend to impose on the local population. Now, going back to your first question very briefly, you know, well, it is risky. You know, we've been in this for many years, you as well. I remember when you were at The Guardian, and, you know, anybody that sort of like is prepared to stick out his neck and say the truth in this country and refuses to be politically correct all the time is running a risk. But the issue is this a risk that's worth taking? In my view, I believe it is. I'm a firm believer in the power of God. I'm a practicing Christian. I'm not an angel, but throughout, from beginning to end, the Lord has been with me and has protected me and delivered me from the hands of my enemies, which is why I continue to operate. In fact, I happen to have this view that the day I stop saying the right thing and standing up to what I think is unjust and is wicked is the day that the Lord will take it very hard on me and may hand me over to my enemies. And that's really what motivates me. It's my faith in God that motivates me. And that is why I can never stop as long as I feel that something is being done. I'm also a great believer in equity and justice, and speaking out for people that cannot speak out for themselves, that are often misrepresented. And that's because I've been victim to that on many occasions myself. And I know how painful it can be. Therefore, if I feel there's anything that ought to be said for those that cannot speak for themselves or present their own side of the case, I'm ready, willing, and able to do that. But most importantly is this: I love this country, Nigeria. I love Nigeria. And I believe that if we really want Nigeria to remain one, then we have to understand and accept the fact that every Nigerian, regardless of his faith, regardless of his ethnic nationality, must be treated as equals. If you do not accept that, if you do not take that as a cardinal, sacred point, a fundamental issue, and accept it, then Nigeria cannot last. It cannot last. It cannot be sustained. The idea that some are horse riders and some are horses, or some are servants and some are slaves, some are born to rule, some are born to be ruled. We must discard that, and we must ensure that we treat each other with love, sensitivity, and mutual respect. And if we don't speak the truth, and if we all insist on being politically correct all the time, that's never going to happen. I'm glad that everybody's waking up now, that if you don't accept that principle, then many are saying we're going to leave, which is where IPOB stands, MASOB stands, and the OPC and all the Odua self-determination groups stand, and so many other groups now. And people are beginning to realize the dangers in sustaining a contraption which tells you that one race and one faith is superior to another. We're resisting that, and we want equality of opportunity and equality of faith and equality of nationalities. I'm really sorry. The other two questions you asked, I don't know, I've slipped my mind. Can you quickly tell me?
Is there something that the Buhari government can do that will turn you into their fan?
Yeah, that's right.
No, I've commended them wherever I think that they've got it right. Unfortunately, it's not very often they do that. One of the things that I do commend them for is the fact that in the case of Zamfara State, the federal government supported the governor in fighting crime. And that tells you that when they want to do it, they can do it. And, terrorism was reduced by almost 80% in Zamfara since Matawale became governor. I know, I went there and I saw with my own eyes. And because I travel a lot, I go to these places, and they exercise the political will to do the right thing there. I also think that it's good the way in which they've also tried their best to at least reach out to opposition groups in some areas. Like, for example, in the Southwest, they have not left Makinde out. They have not only dealt with APC governors, they've also carried him along. He's doing a good job collaborating with them in order to ensure we have security. So in some areas, let me also give insight. Enugu State, great governor you have there. Great governor, Ugwai. A lot of people don't know the work that man has done. Umahi as well, who has just gone to the APC. These guys are working closely. Ayade too, working closely, and also Udom, working closely with the federal government to ensure there's security in their states. Now, a lot of people on the other side, for example, IPOB will say nothing but negative things about Ugwai or Umahi, but I know them and I've been there. And I know that had it not been for their low-profile, quiet efforts in their respective states, things would have been a lot worse. And you may have ended up having a civil war by now, I'm telling you. But they have managed to work quietly and do a lot of stuff with the collaboration of the security agencies to ensure that particularly the menace of Fulani husband is coming. They don't speak much publicly about it, but I know what they're doing. I go there and I've seen it. So that is what I like about this government. When they want to do it, they can do it very well. And of course, Abba Kyari was my friend for over 40 years and the former chief of staff. And we collaborated quite a lot, even though we disagree completely in terms of fundamental issues. And if only they had more like Abba, things may have been a bit better in this country. So they haven't got it wrong all the time. They've just got it wrong most of the time. And I sincerely hope and pray for it. I pray for the president too, because he's our president. I pray for all of them that they get it right. That's all.
Looks like we have another caller on the line. Very quickly, your name, your location, and your question or comment.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us.
I have been following the interview. I must commend Chief Fani Kayode, that is a very eloquent speaker and great orator. He has the capacity and power to convene and move people in a certain direction. But what I want to ask him, he said he is a Christian. Does he believe that branding a certain tribe as criminals simply because most of them or a lot of them have been found in this tribe is a good Christian virtue? And that
Thank you.
Before you go, he should also realize that his eloquence and oratory is so good that he could trigger war and people will believe him a lot. Therefore, I think sometimes we should be a bit circumspect with a lot of things that come out that he believes it, and then he says, I wait for answer to my question.
Thank you very much. I didn't quite get the last part, but let me just go to
He says that given your eloquence and your oratory and the passion with which you speak, you could mobilize people to cause problems, and that you need to be a bit more careful with your choice of words and the positions you assume in the public domain.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me go to the first part of the question he put. There's never at any point in time in my entire political career have I said all Fulanis are bad. And never have I and would I ever say that all Fulanis are criminals. Never. I cannot do that. I'm too enlightened and too advanced to do that. And I'm a believer in God. And I know that all men and women are children of God, regardless of faith. So I would never do that, and I've never done that. What I'm against are terrorists. And I say that anybody that is a terrorist, whether you're Fulani or you're not a Fulani, whatever you are, if you kill people with bombs, if you kidnap people, if you butcher people and cut their hearts out, if you take other people's land for yourself, rape their wives, kill their children in front of them, you are a terrorist. And I have no apology for labeling people that do that kind of thing as criminals and animals, regardless of their political, regardless of their religious faith, regardless of their tribe, and regardless of their political affiliation. They are all terrorists. Now, unfortunately for us, Mieti Allah speaks for these people. Unfortunately for us, they themselves call themselves Fulani herdsmen. Unfortunately for us, they are predominantly Fulanis. And it was the most asinine thing anybody can do is to try to deny that fact and say that because they say they're Fulanis and because we want to be politically correct, we mustn't use that word. The overwhelming majority of Fulani people are not herdsmen. And not all herdsmen are terrorists, but we are referring to those that are terrorists. And you need to recognize the fact that you have a major problem in this country. Political correctness. You must address it for what it is. When we had the Niger Delta militants, we call them Niger Delta militants. And there was a discussion, their elders and their leaders accepted that what they were doing was dangerous for the country and reached out to them and reined them in. If only our northern leaders could do precisely the same thing and rein these people in. But no, what do you get instead? The presidency defends them. The government defends them. Everybody is scared of them. The police refuses to disarm them. And they are killing and killing and killing. And you say we should not identify them for what they are? That's wrong. I'm not against Fulanis. I'm not against anybody saying Fulanis should leave area. I love the Fulani people. And let me tell you something you may not know. 1/8 of the blood that is in my veins is Fulani blood. If you don't know this today. I cannot hate myself. And I'm proud to say that. People say, oh, why do you say? No, I'm proud to tell you the truth. That does not mean that I will tolerate or accept any form of terrorism from any kind of group, whether Fulani, Yoruba, Igbo, or anything. We must fight it together. Good Fulanis, good Yorubas, good Nigerians must stand together, identify it for what it is, identify them for who they are, and fight it. So that's number one. Number two, you said about my rhetoric. Listen, I find that most of the time, I'm actually very restrained because the way I feel, I ought to be speaking in a far more vociferous, aggressive manner, given what is going on. Let me tell you the problem we all have. We don't empathize with the victims. We don't empathize. If, for example, God forbid, your whole family had been wiped out by Fulani terrorists or wiped out by Boko Haram or ISWA, wiped out, every single one of them, you would not be saying, oh, we should be more careful with what we say. Emotions come into this. And I think I've been very, very restrained in many ways. And what I've tried to do is sensitize people to the truth. Now, if that truth is something that ignites them, ignites their passions, then so be it. But one thing I will never do is encourage violence. I'm against violence. I'm against people taking the law into their own hands. I'm against killing other people. The only time I could condone violence is if it's in self-defense. Outside of that, I condemn violence and I would be the last to incite anybody. But to speak out for the oppressed, to speak out for the voiceless, and to speak out for those that cannot speak out for us, and the victims of these atrocities, I will continue to do until the day that I die without any apology whatsoever. If the government was doing what it ought to do, we won't have this situation. If the government exhibited 10% of the passion that people like myself and others, including Reuben has written many times on these things that have been going on in this country. If all of us, if the government was doing all these things, we wouldn't have to say these things. But we're in a situation where people are being slaughtered on a daily basis, and we're being told to just live with it and keep our mouths shut. And you as a government are not disarming the terrorists. You're doing nothing to defend us. And when we complain or defend ourselves, we mustn't do that. You tell us we mustn't do that. There's something fundamentally wrong. And I think you should thank God that we have people, not just me, but so many others that are speaking out and saying, enough is enough. And I'll continue to do that.
Well, I just saw a comment from Foluke Ademokun saying that, well, we should all learn to manage our emotions. We should try to have a dialogue, not a debate. And that when we manage our emotions...
The issue about emotion, we mustn't be guided by our emotion. I agree with that. But we do have emotions. And where I've seen the gentleman that spoke, I respect his opinion, but I've seen decapitated bodies. I've been to the homes of these people. I've been to these communities. And I rein in my emotions, but I speak truth to power. And we must all learn to do this. Let me say this, Reuben. You see, there's a fundamental issue. if you look at what happened during the Second World War, when the Nazis were in power in Germany, nobody denied the fact that the Nazis were Germans. Nobody said, oh, don't call them Germans because not all Germans were Nazis. Everybody said these people were Germans, these people were Nazis. They killed 6 million people, greatest atrocity, and 50 million people died after that Second World War. Now, since that time, every day in the West, they talk about it. Films are made about it. Nobody's allowed to. They say never again, never again. And the state of Israel was created as a consequence or reestablished as a consequence of what they did to the Jews, what the Germans or the Nazis did to the Jews. The Germans are not saying today, don't call them Germans. Don't say they're Germans. After all, they were Nazis. They acknowledge it. They apologize more than anybody else. They've made more reparations than anybody else. And they have apologized. Even the Catholic Church, because Hitler was a Catholic, has apologized for supporting him at that time. Why is it that we are always running away from the fact that when somebody or a group of people does something wrong, we refuse to say it as it is in the name of political correctness and in the name of saying we don't want any more trouble? The trouble is already at your doorstep. The trouble is already in your sitting room. You just haven't been a victim yet, and God forbid you should be. But we speak out for those that are victims, and we speak out that these things must stop so more people are not murdered, more people are not killed. And there's one more point. I'll tell you, the greatest danger in being politically correct and being reined in and not allowing you speaking out with emotion and with passion is this. People like me, we just talk. There are some people who are not ready to even listen to people like me who are saying, listen, enough talk. We must prepare for war. And nobody wants war. Nobody wants violence. But there are people like that. They say, look, all the talking in the world will not change this thing. It gets to a point you have to stand up for yourself and fight. And I'm saying, no, we don't need to fight. We must talk and we must settle this thing at the negotiating table. But we must speak truth. And the truth, sadly, is a very sad, emotional truth that people are being butchered, and we must not forget that.
Femi, Fani, Kayode, we're going to wrap this up in less than 5 minutes. But I want to see how I can squeeze in just 2 more interventions.
Okay, I'll be very quick.
Well, I have this from Yemi Adogun from the United Kingdom. He's asking, he says he wants to know whether you are still in the PDP. And if you are still in that party, do you really believe that the PDP, the People's Democratic Party, has any credible candidate that can fight and win the presidential election in 2023, beyond all these criticisms of the ruling All Progressives Congress Party in Nigeria?
Well, the answer to the question is I am in the PDP. However, I pride myself on being what you probably call a one-man riot squad. I operate outside the PDP, and I'm a member of the party. I'm a leader of the party, but I really am on my own when it comes to issues of national interest. And I speak my mind. I don't speak for anybody but for myself. And I speak for many people that are oppressed across party lines and across regional lines. When it comes to the issue of winning power in 2023, I think, frankly speaking, PDP has a lot of work to do. It would be very naive for anybody to think that the APC that rigged themselves into power in 2015, 4 years later rigged themselves back into power in 2019, that the same APC will allow themselves to be defeated in an election in 2023. I think our problem is much more fundamental than party politics. And I've always believed that we cannot solve our problems simply by a change of guard at the national level, because you'll probably find the PDP does not do anything. Well, they'll do a better job, certainly, in terms of law and order and perhaps the economy. But in terms of fundamental restructuring and so on and so forth, would they do that? I don't believe they would. The answer to the problem or the question of this country is restructuring power from the center and restructuring the whole country and going into fundamental issues like that. It's not just a question of party politics. And so that's my position on that.
There's another caller on the line, and that will probably be the last intervention. Please, your name, your location, and please be brief.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon. Mr. Kayode, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes. There is one question.
Oh, we lost that call. Yes, it will probably call back. Okay, I think he's back on the line. Yes, please go ahead.
Dr. Abati, good afternoon. You have to feel like we're here. And I greet Chief.
I first of all want to appreciate him for speaking the bitter truth. I don't believe we have to be politically correct before we express our mind. And again, nobody has called anybody criminal. But the problem of Nigeria is because of political correctness. And I will take you back to 2018. The vice president was in America and he was speaking with Nigerian diasporas there. He said the insecurity in Nigeria was over-exaggerated. 3 weeks he came back to Nigeria. 3 weeks he came back to Nigeria. The daughter of Papa Tomati was killed. And all of them went to his house. And the conspiracy of silence of our enemies too, across political divide. They all took to Baba's house, visited him, and did whatever. And before then, people have been complaining. A lot of people have been killed. Nobody has spoken. Oyo State, for instance, has 2 senators from APC, 9 rep members from APC, and other people from PDP. Nobody has really spoken on the floor of the House, talk about this insecurity. And you remember, in 2015, 2016, problems have started gradually and everything got escalated. Why do we behave this way? That's number one. Number two, the issue of the ICC. Now, you talk about Britain going to ICC and whatever, which for me is okay if you can get accountability. But what is the process for that to happen? Then finally, now, if we're talking about insecurity, is it just going to the streets with soldiers, army, whatever, to get everywhere peaceful? No. What about good governance? Yes.
Femi, Kayode, if you can manage to respond to all of that in just 1 minute, because we're already running out of time.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't quite get what he said, but let me just, I think this is the way to answer this. First of all, the political correctness and what Vice President Oshibajo said in 2018, well, you're absolutely right. Everything that I said would happen in 2015 if Jonathan was removed from power and Buhari was sworn in as president has happened, without except everything. And the situation has got much worse in terms of law and order, in terms of division in the country and so on, and the slaughter. And you're absolutely right. They did try to play it down, but it hasn't worked. It's glaring to everybody. It's obvious to everybody. A situation where Donald Trump would look at the president of our country in the face, in front of the TV cameras of the White House, and say, why are Christians being killed in your country? Well, it wasn't just Christians. Muslims are also being killed. Everybody was being killed. We've become an abattoir, and people expect an abattoir of blood flow of human beings, and people expect us to keep quiet and live with it. Well, it's not going to happen. And I think we mustn't be politically correct. We must speak out as best as we can. I'm not sure the other part of his question. Sorry, Reuben, I didn't quite. If I can quickly answer that.
Well, the line was not so clear, so we lost that part of it. Okay. He had about 3 questions packed into one, but I think his major point was about political correctness. And I think you've done justice to that. Thank you very much.
Political correctness will kill us in this country if we're not careful. And it will lead us to the disintegration of the country if we're not. I mean, it's politically correct to say we're against IPOB, but the truth is that you can't label IPOB terrorists when IPOB have not been killing people, and at the same time you're labeling those that kill people as not being terrorists. It just doesn't make sense. And people that are seeking for self-determination, how can you then turn and simply because they say they're calling for a referendum, you say they're terrorists and you kill them? That in itself is an act of terror, to be killing people simply for insisting on their constitutional rights. So there's a lot going on here, a lot of political correctness. We don't need it. We need truth. We must speak truth to power to make Nigeria a better place and make everybody feel part and parcel of this country. And that's our mission.
Well, of course, Chief Femi Kayode, you also agree that we're people of hope. We all believe, one way or the other, whatever the differences may be, that this country can be bettered, it can be improved upon, and that it can be restructured, and that tomorrow is a much better destination than today if we work hard at it. Well, thank you very much, Chief Femi Kayode, for taking time out to join us on this program today. And we're all very optimistic about the future of Nigeria. We also want to thank all our callers and those who joined us on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. Remember, the conversation does not end here. You can reach out to me on my social media account at Abati1990, both on Instagram and Twitter, and at City1051 on all social media platforms. For those of you who tuned in late, well, no need to worry. You can visit our YouTube page at City 1051 to watch the entire show later today. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And don't forget also to tune in next week at noon for another exciting edition of City Talks. My name is Reuben Abati.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.